The USS Earth was the largest ship humanity had ever built. It was over 3 kilometers long, shaped like a long silver blade, and it carried 12,000 people inside it. It was not just a warship. It was a city that could fly between stars. Families lived on it. Children went to school on it. Farmers grew food in its huge gardens under fake sunlight, but it also had weapons that could destroy a moon if it had to. The ship had been built after Earth's government decided that humanity needed something more than small scout ships to explore the galaxy. For centuries, humans had stayed close to their own solar system, sending small probes and short-range ships to nearby stars. But as human technology grew, so did human curiosity. The USS Earth was the answer to that curiosity, a vessel large enough to carry entire communities safely across vast distances, able to support itself for years without needing to return home. It was meant to be a symbol of what humanity could become if it looked outward instead of staying fearful and small. Right now, the ship was on a routine mission, mapping a region of space far beyond any previous human contact, cataloging stars, planets, and any signs of resources or life. It was supposed to be quiet, careful, scientific work. Nothing about this mission had been expected to be dangerous. Captain Elena Voss stood on the bridge, looking at the black space in front of her. She was 52 years old, with short gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too many long nights. She had been in command of the USS Earth for 6 years, and in that time, she had taken the ship through quiet space, through storms of space dust, and through 2 small fights with pirates, but she had never seen anything like what her sensors were now showing her. "Report," she said, her voice calm but firm. Lieutenant Mikhail Chen, the young sensor officer, looked up from his screen. His face was pale. "Captain, we have a lot of ships ahead. I'm counting over 400 vessels, 2 different fleets. They are firing on each other. Heavy weapons fire, explosions everywhere." Voss had been eating a quiet breakfast in her quarters just 20 minutes earlier, going over reports about a nearby asteroid field the ship had surveyed the day before. She had expected today to be just as calm as the past several weeks had been. Instead, she had been called to the bridge the moment the sensors picked up unusual readings, and now she stood facing a situation no training exercise had ever prepared her for. 400 ships, Voss repeated slowly. "Species? Unknown, Captain. Neither fleet matches anything in our database. This is not human tech, and it's not anything we've traded with before." Voss turned to her second-in-command, Commander James Okafor, a tall man with calm eyes, who had served with her for over a decade. "James, are we in a safe path around this?" Okafor shook his head. "No, Captain. We're already too close. Our jump drive needs 6 more minutes to charge before we can escape this area. If we try to turn around now, we'll be moving right through their weapon range for at least 10 minutes. If we go forward, through the middle of the fight, it might actually be safer, strange as that sounds. The ships are mostly facing each other, not us." Voss frowned. It was a hard choice. Either way, the USS Earth was flying into a war zone between 2 alien fleets that had never even heard of Earth. "Take us forward," she said, slow and steady. "All defensive systems on standby. Do not fire unless we are fired upon. I don't want to become part of somebody else's war." The great ship moved forward, cutting through the dark space toward the battle. As they got closer, the crew could see it with their own eyes now, not just on sensors. Bright flashes of colored light lit up space like fireworks. Ships on one side were shaped like long, thin needles, silver and blue, moving in fast, sharp patterns. Ships on the other side were bulkier, dark red and black, moving slower but firing bigger weapons. Explosions bloomed silently in the vacuum of space, one after another. "This is like nothing I've ever seen," whispered Ensign Priya Patel, one of the youngest officers on the bridge. She had joined the crew only 8 months ago, straight out of the academy. Her hands were shaking slightly on her console. "Stay focused, Ensign," said Okafor gently. "Just do your job. We'll get through this." Patel nodded and forced her hands to stop shaking, though her eyes kept flicking back to the huge display showing the battle ahead. She had studied xenobiology and communications at the academy, dreaming of the day she might be part of humanity's first real contact with another intelligent species. She had never imagined that dream might come true in the middle of an active war zone, with her own life and the lives of everyone she cared about hanging in the balance. Throughout the ship, word of the situation had begun to spread. In the observation deck near the ship's central garden, a group of off-duty crew members had gathered to watch the strange lights flickering in the distance through the huge windows. Among them was Marcus Webb, an engineer, who had a 6-year-old daughter named Lily, currently in one of the ship's classrooms, unaware of what was happening outside. Marcus gripped the railing tightly, watching the flashes of alien weapons fire, praying silently that Captain Voss would find a way to keep them all safe. Back on the bridge, Voss took a slow breath, trying to steady her own nerves before speaking again. She was responsible for 12,000 souls, and every decision she made in the next few minutes could determine whether all of them lived to see tomorrow. The USS Earth entered the edge of the battle zone. Immediately, alarms started going off. "We're being scanned," Chen shouted. "Both fleets are scanning us. Their sensors are locked onto our hull." Voss's jaw tightened. "Shields to full power. All hands. Brace for possible impact." Everyone on the bridge held their breath. This was the moment. Either the alien ships would see the USS Earth as another target to destroy, or maybe, just maybe, they would leave the strange newcomer alone. 10 seconds passed, then 20, then a full minute. Nothing happened. No weapons were fired at the USS Earth. "Captain," Chen said, his voice shaking with confusion, "something strange is happening. Look at the main screen." Voss turned toward the huge display at the front of the bridge. What she saw made her stand up from her chair in shock. Every single ship in the battle, all 400 of them, from both fleets, had stopped firing. Not just at the USS Earth. At each other too. The bright flashes of weapons fire had gone completely silent. The needle-shaped ships and the red-black ships, who had been trying to destroy each other just moments ago, were now floating motionless in space, as if frozen in time. What is going on?" Patel asked, looking around at the other officers. "I don't know," Voss admitted. She had never felt so confused in her entire career. "James, can you get any communication signals from them?" Okafor worked quickly at his console. "I'm picking up signals, Captain, but I can't translate them yet. Both fleets are sending out messages. Not to each other, to us. Put it through, but keep it on our side only. I want to hear it, before we respond to anything." A strange sound came through the bridge speakers. It was not like any human language. It sounded like a mix of deep hums and sharp clicking noises, almost like whale songs mixed with insect sounds. The Universal Translator, a device built into the ship's computer that could learn new languages by studying patterns, began working immediately. Words started appearing on screen, though many were marked as uncertain or unclear. "They keep repeating one phrase," Chen said, watching the translation build up on his screen. "The computer is fairly confident about this part. It seems to mean something like, 'The old ones have returned.'" The bridge went quiet. "The old ones?" Voss repeated. "What does that mean? We've never made contact with any alien species before this moment. How could they think we're something they already know?" "Maybe it's not about us specifically," Okafor said slowly. "Maybe it's about what we look like, or what our ship looks like." Voss stared at the frozen battle around them. Hundreds of ships from 2 different alien species, ships that had been trying to kill each other seconds ago, were now all pointed toward the USS Earth. Weapons powered down, engines idle. It did not make sense, unless something about the arrival of a giant, unknown vessel had scared both sides equally. "Ensign Patel, pull up everything we know about ancient human myths and legends involving something called Old Ones, or similar names," Voss ordered. "I want to know if there's any connection, even if it seems like a stretch." "Yes, Captain," Patel said, already typing. While she searched, Chen kept monitoring the alien fleets. "Captain, one of the ships from the Needle Fleet is moving. Just one. It's breaking away from its formation and heading toward us, slowly, no weapons active." "Let it come," Voss said. "But keep our shields up and stay ready. Do not lower our guard." The ship, a small vessel much smaller than the massive warships around it, approached the USS Earth carefully. It stopped a few hundred meters away, well within visual range. Through the front viewport, the crew could see its silver-blue hull shining under the light of a distant star. "They're sending another message," Okafor said. "This time it seems clearer. The translator is working better now that it has more data." The strange sounds came through the speakers again, and this time, more words appeared on the translation screen, though still broken and incomplete. Please, do not be angry. We did not know you would return. We stopped the war out of respect. Please, forgive us. Voss felt a chill go down her spine. Forgive us for what? There was a pause, and then more words came through. For fighting, in the sacred space. This region is known as the place where the old ones once walked. We did not mean to disturb this place. Please, do not punish us. The crew looked at each other in confusion. None of this made any sense. The USS Earth was a human ship, built only 20 years ago in a shipyard orbiting Mars. It had no connection to any ancient legend of any alien species. And yet here they were, being treated like gods or monsters from an old story, simply because they had appeared at the wrong place at the wrong time. Commander Okafor, Voss said quietly, send a message back, tell them we mean no harm, and ask them to explain who the old ones are. We need more information before we can respond properly. Okafor nodded and began composing a message using the translator's best guesses at their language, keeping the words simple so there would be less chance of confusion. While they waited for a response, Ensign Patel finally spoke up from her research station. Captain, I think I found something. It's not exact, but there might be a connection. Go on, Voss said. There's an old theory in astrophysics and archaeology, something scientists have talked about for over a century. It's called the precursor theory. The idea is that long before humans existed, maybe even before most life in the galaxy existed, there was an ancient civilization that traveled between the stars. Some scientists believe they built enormous structures we've found in deep space, things too advanced for us to understand or copy. We've never found direct proof they existed, but there are strange ruins on a few planets that don't match any known technology from any species we've contacted. And you think these aliens believe we are connected to that ancient civilization? Voss asked. It's possible, Captain. Maybe the USS Earth's size, or its shape, or even the way we just appeared out of nowhere, reminded them of old legends about these precursors. Maybe there are stories passed down for thousands of years about ships like ours. Voss rubbed her temples, trying to process everything. This was supposed to be a simple survey mission, mapping unexplored space on the far edge of human territory. Instead, they had stumbled into the middle of an alien war, and now, 2 entire fleets believed the USS Earth was connected to some ancient legendary civilization. Whatever the reason, she said finally, we have an opportunity here. If they believe we are something powerful, we might be able to stop this war peacefully, at least for now, and learn more about what's really going on. Captain, Chen interrupted suddenly, the other fleet, the red-black ships, they're sending a message too, directly to us now. Let's hear it. The translation appeared on screen after a moment, in the same broken but understandable style. We see you, Ancient One. We remember the old stories. Tell us, why have you come back now? Are you here to judge us? Are you here to end our war? Voss took a deep breath. This was the moment that would decide everything. How she responded now could either calm this alien conflict or make it much, much worse. She was not a diplomat by training. She was a ship captain. But right now, she had to be something more. Commander Okafor, she said, standing straight and tall, send this message, exactly as I say it. Tell them, we come in peace. We do not wish to judge anyone, but your fighting in this place has caught our attention, and we wish to understand why you are at war. Explain your conflict to us, and we will decide how to help. Okafor typed the message carefully and sent it out to both fleets. Within moments, more messages came flooding in, this time from multiple ships in both fleets at once, all trying to explain their side of the story, all speaking over each other in broken translated words that overlapped and confused the ship's computer. Slow down, Chen said, though of course the aliens could not hear him unless it was sent through the comm system. The translator can't handle this many messages at once. Voss raised a hand. Everyone, quiet. Then to Okafor, send a message telling them to choose one representative from each fleet to speak with us. Just one from each side. The order went out, and slowly, the chaos of messages died down. A few minutes later, 2 ships, one from each fleet, moved forward from their groups and approached the USS Earth, positioning themselves on opposite sides of the massive human vessel, careful not to get too close to each other. "This is going to be complicated," Okafor muttered. "It already is," Voss replied. "But we're here now. Let's find out what's really happening in this system, and let's see if we can end this war before more ships get destroyed." Voss turned to look at the crew gathered around her on the bridge. Chen was still monitoring the 2 approaching ships carefully, his earlier fear replaced now by focused determination. Okafor stood beside her chair, steady as always, ready to support whatever decision she made next. Patel had returned to her research console, still trying to dig up any further clues about the ancient legend that had somehow saved all their lives in this strange system. "Captain," Patel said suddenly, looking up from her screen, "I found something else. There are actually a few old Earth expeditions, decades ago, that reported finding strange ruins on uninhabited planets, structures far too advanced to have been built by any species we'd ever met. The reports were mostly dismissed at the time as sensor errors or natural rock formations, but a few scientists always believed there was more to the story." "Do we have coordinates for any of those ruins?" Voss asked. "A few, Captain. None of them are close to here, but it's possible they're connected to whatever historical event created the legend these aliens believe in." Voss nodded thoughtfully. It was a mystery she would have loved to explore under different circumstances, but right now, there was a war to try to stop, and the safety of her ship and crew came first. As the 2 representative ships settled into position, Priya Patel looked at the frozen battlefield around them. Hundreds of ships still floating silently in space, weapons cold, engines idle, everyone waiting to see what the strange giant ship from an unknown world would do next. "Captain," she said quietly, "I think we just became part of someone else's legend." Voss looked out at the vast battlefield, then back at her crew, all of them waiting for her next order. She thought about the 12,000 people living inside the USS Earth, the families, the children, all trusting her to keep them safe, while also doing what was right. She thought about the 2 fleets outside, so afraid of a legend that they had stopped trying to kill each other the moment the human ship appeared. "Then let's make sure it's a good one," she said. The bridge crew got to work, preparing for what would become the strangest first contact in human history, not with one alien species, but with 2, both caught in a war that had lasted longer than anyone on the USS Earth could imagine, and both now looking to a ship of ordinary humans as if they were something far greater than they really were. Far away, in the depths of the ship, word had already begun to spread among the crew and their families. Something incredible was happening outside, and no one, not even Captain Voss herself, truly understood yet just how much this moment would change everything. The 2 alien ships floated on either side of the USS Earth, quiet and still, like nervous animals waiting to see what a much bigger creature would do. Captain Elena Voss stood at the center of the bridge, watching both screens that showed the ships up close now, thanks to the ship's powerful cameras. News of the strange encounter had by now spread throughout the entire ship. In the crew mess hall, people gathered around monitors showing outside footage, watching the frozen battlefield with a mixture of fear and wonder. Some crew members whispered nervous questions to each other. Would the aliens attack once they realized the USS Earth was not truly connected to their old legends? Would humanity's very first contact with intelligent life end in disaster? Others felt a strange, cautious excitement, aware that they were living through a moment that would be remembered in history books for generations to come, whichever way it turned out. Voss had no time to worry about the crew's anxiety directly, though she trusted her officers throughout the ship to keep people calm and informed. Her full attention needed to remain on the delicate situation unfolding just outside the bridge's viewport. The ship on the left, from the needle-shaped fleet, was sleek and smooth, its silver-blue hull covered in strange glowing lines that pulsed softly, almost like veins carrying light instead of blood. The ship on the right, from the red-black fleet, was rougher, built from thick plates of dark metal, with small spikes along its body, that looked almost like armor plating on an old warship from Earth's past. "Captain, we're getting a clearer signal now," said Commander Okafor. "The translator has been working on their language patterns this whole time, and it's improving fast. I think we can actually have a real conversation now, not just short, choppy phrases." "Good," Voss said. "Open a channel to both of them. but keep it so they can only hear what I say to them directly. I don't want them talking over each other again. Channel open, Captain. Voss cleared her throat. Even though the aliens could not see her, she stood as straight as she could, wanting to feel confident, even if she didn't fully feel it inside. This is Captain Elena Voss, of the human ship USS Earth. We do not know what you mean when you call us Old Ones, or Ancient Ones. We are not from any legend. We are simply explorers from a world called Earth, far from here. But we want to understand your conflict. Please, one of you, tell us why you are fighting. There was a pause. Then a voice came through, translated into calm, careful words. It came from the silver-blue ship first. I am Calith Van, war speaker of the Serenity Fleet. We are called the Aeltho by our own people, though your tongue may find that difficult. We do not question whether you are truly the Old Ones. It does not matter. What matters is that you stopped us, and we owe you an explanation out of respect for the sacred ground you occupy. The sacred ground? Voss repeated. This is just open space. There's nothing here but stars and empty vacuum. You misunderstand, Calith replied. This system, this very place where we now float, is called the Cradle in our oldest stories. Long ago, before either of our peoples built starships, our ancestors believed the ones who first gave life to this part of the galaxy passed through here. We call them the Old Ones, ships larger than any we build today, silver like starlight, appearing suddenly and vanishing just as fast. Your vessel matches those old drawings almost perfectly. Voss glanced at Okafor, who shrugged, just as confused as she was. This was pure coincidence. Or maybe not entirely. Maybe there really had been an ancient species that traveled through this region long ago, and by pure chance, human ship design had ended up looking similar. It was strange, but stranger things had happened in the history of space exploration. The second voice came through now, deeper and rougher, from the red-black ship. I am Dromash Kerr, first blade of the Ashen Talon. My people are called the Vorek. We do not share the same old stories as the Aeltho, but we know of the legend too, passed down differently among our clans. To us, the Old Ones were not gods, they were judges. It is said they would appear when wars grew too cruel, too endless, and they would end the fighting themselves, one way or another. And that's why you both stopped firing, Voss said slowly, finally understanding. You were afraid we came to judge you, and maybe punish you, for the war you're fighting. Yes, Calith said simply. Yes, Dromash echoed. Voss took a moment before speaking again. This was an enormous responsibility being placed on her shoulders, one she had never asked for and did not want. But she also saw an opportunity. If both fleets were willing to stop fighting out of respect for an old legend, maybe that respect could be used to actually bring peace, even if the legend itself was not true. Tell me about your war, she said. Why are you fighting each other? What started this conflict? There was a heavy silence before Dromash spoke. It began 3 generations ago, in the eyes of my people. A trade dispute over a mineral called xanthium, found only on a handful of planets in this region. It is used to power our ship's weapons and shields. The Aeltho claimed rights to the largest deposit, on a moon called Urkesh. My people believed the mineral belonged to whoever could take it and hold it. What started as arguments over resources became raids, then battles, then full war. 3 generations, Voss repeated. How many people have died in this war? Another silence, longer this time. We do not know the exact number, Calith admitted. Millions, certainly. Perhaps tens of millions when you count soldiers, civilians caught in crossfire, and those lost when entire colonies were destroyed in the fighting. The bridge crew went quiet. Millions of lives lost over a mineral dispute that had grown into an endless cycle of revenge and war. It reminded Voss uncomfortably of certain periods in Earth's own history, wars that had started over small disagreements and grown into something far larger and more terrible than anyone had originally intended. And you've been fighting continuously for 3 generations? Okafor asked, unable to hide his shock. There have been pauses, Dromash said, times of ceasefire, but they never last. Someone always breaks the peace, believing it will give them an advantage. And then the war begins again, worse than before. Voss thought carefully about her next words. She was not a trained diplomat. She had spent her career as a soldier and then a ship captain, not a peacemaker between alien species locked in generational war. But she also knew that this moment mattered more than almost anything else in her career, maybe in human history. If she handled this wrong, it could mean humanity's first contact with intelligent alien life ended in disaster, with two fleets deciding they had been wrong to trust the old ones, or worse, deciding that humans were now enemies too. "I am not going to pretend to be your ancient legend," she said finally, choosing her words with care. "I do not know if my people are connected to your old ones or not. But I will tell you this. On my world, we also fought wars like yours. Wars over land, over resources, over old grudges that grew bigger with each generation. It took us a very long time, and it cost us millions of lives too, before we learned how foolish those wars truly were." She paused, letting the translator catch up, then continued. "I cannot end your war for you. I do not have that power, and even if I did, it would not be right for me to force peace onto you. But I can offer you this. Let us mediate a real conversation between your two fleets, here, now, with no weapons active, and try to find a way to end this conflict permanently, not just with another temporary ceasefire, but a real solution." There was a long pause after her words were translated. The two alien ships remained still, and for a moment, Voss wondered if she had said something wrong, if the delicate peace holding the battlefield together might shatter, and the war would resume immediately. Then Caliph spoke. "Why would you help us? We are strangers to you. Our war does not concern your people at all." "Because," Voss said, "war like this, war that goes on for generations without real reason anymore, is a tragedy no matter who is fighting it. And because if we truly are seen as something like your legendary old ones, even by mistake, then maybe we should try to live up to the better parts of that legend, the part where they stopped wars, not the part where they judged people." Dromash's rough voice came through next. "The Vorik fleet commander must approve any true negotiation. I am only a blade captain, not the fleet's leader, but I believe he will listen, especially now, with the old ones watching. And the Serenity fleet's true leader is not here either," Caliph added. "Our speaker mother, Thessaly Orin, commands from our capital world, several days' travel from here. She would need to be brought into any real discussion." Voss nodded, even though they could not see her. "Then let's arrange that. Send word to your true leaders. Tell them the ship they call the Old Ones wishes to help end this war, and that we request a meeting with both of them, here, as soon as possible." Both alien officers agreed to relay the message, and their ships pulled back slightly, moving to send communications to their true commanders. Voss finally allowed herself to sit back down in her chair, letting out a long breath she felt like she had been holding for the better part of an hour. "That was incredible, Captain," Patel said from her station, her voice full of admiration. "Let's not celebrate yet," Voss said. "We just told two entire fleets, with a combined force of 400 warships, that we're going to try to end a war that's lasted 3 generations. If this goes wrong, we could end up as the villains in their next legend instead of the heroes." "What do you think our chances are?" Okafor asked quietly, coming to stand beside her chair. Voss considered the question carefully before answering. "Honestly, I don't know, but I think we have something on our side that might help. Both fleets already believe we're something special, something powerful and wise. That belief alone might be enough to get them to actually sit down and talk, instead of just shooting at each other. Sometimes that's the hardest part of ending any war, just getting people to stop long enough to really listen to each other." While they waited for responses from the true leaders of both fleets, Voss asked her science officers to dig deeper into any information about xanthium, the mineral at the heart of the conflict. If they were going to help negotiate peace, she wanted to understand exactly what was being fought over. Lieutenant Sarah Kim, the ship's chief science officer, pulled up detailed scans of the nearby moon called Urkesh, which the aliens had mentioned as the center of their dispute. "Captain, according to our scans, this moon has one of the largest deposits of an unknown mineral I've ever seen. Its molecular structure doesn't match anything in our records, but if it truly can be used to power weapons and shields the way they described, I can understand why it would be valuable enough to fight over." "What exactly does xanthium do that makes it so valuable?" Patel asked, curious despite the tension of the situation. "Based on the readings we're getting, it seems to have unusual properties for storing and releasing energy very quickly and very efficiently," Kim explained. That would make it perfect for powering both weapons and shields, exactly as both fleets described. It's not something we have on Earth, or anywhere in human territory that we've found so far. If this substance is as rare across the galaxy as it seems to be in this region, I can understand why any civilization that found a large deposit of it would consider it worth protecting, even worth fighting for. Is there enough of it to share? Voss asked. Could both fleets use it without needing to fight for exclusive control? Kim ran more calculations, her fingers moving quickly across her console. Based on the size of the deposit and typical mining rates, Captain, there's easily enough xanthium on this moon to supply both fleets for centuries, maybe longer, if they mined it together instead of trying to control it exclusively. Voss felt a small spark of hope at that. If the resource itself was not actually scarce, and the real problem was pride, old grudges, and mistrust built up over 3 generations of fighting, then maybe there was a real path to peace here, not just a temporary pause in the violence. Keep working on that data, she told Kim. I want detailed numbers, ready by the time we speak with their leaders. If we can prove there's enough xanthium to go around, it removes one of their biggest excuses for continuing this war. Hours passed as the crew prepared, gathering data, drafting possible peace proposals, and trying to learn everything they could about both alien cultures, from the increasingly clear translations coming through their communications. Voss barely left the bridge, catching only short naps in her chair, while Okafor took over command during the quiet hours. During one of these quiet stretches, Calith Van reached out again, this time with a more personal message rather than an official one. Captain Voss, the translated voice said softly, may I ask you something, out of curiosity rather than duty? Of course, Voss replied, grateful for a moment of calm conversation after the intensity of the day. Do your people fight wars often? You spoke earlier as though you understood the foolishness of conflict from personal experience. Voss considered the question carefully. We did, for a very long time. Thousands of years of wars between different nations and groups on our own world, over land, resources, beliefs, old grudges passed down through generations, much like what you've described to me. It took us a very long time, and cost us far too many lives, before we finally learned to solve most of our disagreements through talking instead of fighting. We still make mistakes. We're not perfect. But we try to remember how much we lost during those years of conflict, and we try not to repeat those mistakes. That gives me a strange kind of hope, Calith said quietly. If your people could change after so long, perhaps mine can as well. I believe you can, Voss said honestly. It won't be easy, and it won't happen overnight, but I believe it's possible. Elsewhere on the ship, Dromash Kur sent a shorter, more guarded message to Commander Okafor, asking practical questions about human ship technology and defensive capabilities, clearly still cautious despite the tentative peace holding the battlefield together. Okafor answered carefully, sharing only general information, mindful that trust between 3 very different peoples could not be built overnight, and that caution was still wise even as hope grew. Finally, word came back. Both fleet leaders had agreed to meet. The Serenity Fleet's speaker mother, Thessaly Oren, would arrive within 2 days aboard her personal flagship. The Vorik Fleet's true commander, a warlord named Grath Dolmek, was already close by and could arrive within hours. This is really happening, Patel said, looking almost nervous with excitement. We're about to help negotiate an end to an alien war that's been going on for generations. Voss looked out at the frozen battlefield surrounding them. Hundreds of ships still floating silently, weapons cold, waiting for their leaders to arrive and decide the fate of their long, bloody conflict. Let's just hope we don't make things worse, she said quietly, though inside, for the first time since this strange encounter began, she allowed herself a small flicker of real hope that maybe, just maybe, the USS Earth's accidental arrival in this war zone might actually save countless lives instead of ending in disaster. Later that night, ship time, Voss walked slowly through the corridors of the USS Earth, unable to sleep despite her exhaustion. She passed by the observation deck near the central garden and found it quiet, most of the crew having finally gone to rest after the long, tense day. She stopped at the huge window, looking out at the distant lights of the 2 frozen fleets, hundreds of ships belonging to 2 peoples who had been enemies for longer than her own grandparents had been alive. She thought about her own homeworld, about the long history of wars humanity had fought before finally learning, slowly and painfully, how to build lasting peace between old enemies. She thought about how strange it was that this alien war, fought over a resource humans hadn't even known existed a month ago, felt so familiar in its causes and its costs. Pride, fear, grief that curdled into anger, passed down through generations, until no one quite remembered how the fighting had started, only that it must continue, because too much had already been lost to stop. "Captain?" a quiet voice said behind her. It was Okafor, apparently just as unable to sleep as she was. "Just thinking," Voss said, not turning around. "About whether we can actually pull this off? About whether we should even be trying," she admitted. "We're humans. We stumbled into this by accident. Who are we to think we can solve a conflict this old, this painful, just because two fleets happen to believe we're something out of their old legends?" Okafor moved to stand beside her at the window. "Maybe it doesn't matter why we have the chance. Maybe what matters is what we do with it. You didn't ask for this responsibility, Captain, but you're doing everything you can to use it well. That's all anyone could ask of you, human or otherwise." Voss allowed herself a small, tired smile. "Since when did you become the philosopher on this crew, James?" "Since about 6 hours ago, apparently," Okafor said, and for the first time in what felt like days, Voss found herself laughing quietly, grateful for a small moment of lightness amid all the weight of what lay ahead. As the ship continued its silent watch over the battlefield, waiting for the arrival of two powerful alien leaders, no one on board could have guessed just how complicated and dangerous the next few days would truly become. Warlord Grath Dulmec arrived first, 6 hours after the message was sent. His flagship was massive, easily twice the size of any other Vorek ship in the fleet, covered in thick black armor plating with glowing red lines running along its hull like veins of fire. It moved slowly toward the USS Earth, escorted by 20 smaller warships, all of them keeping careful, respectful distance. In the hours before his arrival, Voss had gathered her senior staff for one final planning session. "We need to understand who we're dealing with," she told them. "Warlord Dolmec commands one of the largest military forces in this region, and everything we've learned suggests he's a proud, battle-hardened leader who has spent his entire adult life fighting this war. We cannot afford to appear weak in front of him, but we also cannot afford to appear threatening. We need to walk a very careful line." "And the speaker, Mother?" Okafor asked. "From what Kalith has told us, she leads through wisdom and consensus rather than force," Voss said. "Very different from Dolmec's style of leadership. We'll need to adjust how we speak to each of them, without seeming dishonest or inconsistent to either one." Kim had spent the past 2 days compiling everything the ship's sensors and communications team had learned about both cultures. "One thing that stands out, Captain, is that the Vorek clan structure seems to value strength and directness above almost everything else. If we hedge or seem uncertain in front of Dolmec, he may lose respect for us entirely. But the Aeltho, from what we've gathered, value patience and careful consideration. Speaking too bluntly or too quickly might come across as disrespectful to Orin." Voss nodded, filing away every piece of information. Diplomacy with entirely new species was proving to be far more complicated than any training exercise back on Earth had ever prepared her for. But she had no choice, except to do her best, and hope her instincts served her well. Captain Voss watched the approach from the bridge, standing tall with her arms behind her back, trying to project calm confidence, even though her heart was pounding. "Captain," Okafor said quietly, "our sensors are picking up something odd about that flagship. Its weapon systems are still active, unlike the other Vorek ships, fully charged and ready to fire." Voss frowned. "That's not a good sign. Keep shields at full strength. Do not lower our guard, no matter how polite this warlord tries to sound." The comm channel opened, and a deep, gravelly voice came through, translated smoothly now thanks to hours of data collection by the ship's computer. "I am Grath Dolmec, warlord of the Vorek clans, commander of the Ashen Talon fleet. I have come to see with my own eyes whether the stories my blade captain told me are true. An old one, sitting quietly in the middle of our war, asking for peace." "I am Captain Elena Voss, of the USS Earth," Voss replied evenly. "And yes, we are asking for peace between your people and the Aeltho. We believe this war has cost far too many lives already." over a resource dispute that doesn't need to end in more bloodshed. There was a pause, and then something that almost sounded like a low, rumbling laugh came through the speakers. You speak boldly for a creature who does not even know if it is truly what my people believe it to be. Tell me, Captain Voss, are you truly one of the old ones, or are you simply a clever creature who has learned to use our old legends against us? The bridge went tense. This was the exact question Voss had been dreading, and there was no way to answer it that would satisfy everyone. I will not lie to you, Warlord Dolmek, she said carefully. I do not know what the old ones truly were, or if my people share any connection to them beyond a coincidence in how our ships look. But I do know this. We arrived here by accident, not by any grand plan, and when we saw your fleets fighting each other, we chose to try to help instead of turning away. That choice was ours alone, not some ancient legend controlling us. Another pause, longer this time. Then Dolmek spoke again, his tone slightly different, harder to read. An honest answer. I respect that more than I expected to. Very well, Captain Voss. I will wait for the Aeltho Speaker Mother to arrive, and we will hear what peace you believe is possible. But understand this. My people have lost too much in this war to simply forgive and forget, because a strange ship tells us to stop fighting. If this peace does not serve the Vorik fairly, I will not accept it, legend or no legend. That's fair, Voss said. I'm not asking you to forget your losses or forgive without reason. I'm asking you to consider whether there's a better path forward than continuing a war that's already cost you so much, with no end in sight. Dolmek did not respond further, but his flagship settled into position near the USS Earth, weapons still active, clearly not fully trusting the situation, despite his earlier respectful words. 2 days passed slowly. The crew of the USS Earth continued preparing, gathering more scientific data about the Xenthium deposits, studying what they could learn about both alien cultures, and trying to draft a peace proposal that might actually satisfy both sides. Voss barely slept, spending long hours in meetings with her senior officers, going over every possible angle of the negotiation to come. During this time, Warlord Dolmek requested a private conversation with Voss, away from official channels. I wish to understand something, Captain, he said, his rough voice slightly less guarded than before. You risk much by involving yourself in our war. What does your species truly gain from this? Voss thought carefully before answering. Honestly, Warlord, very little in terms of direct gain. We're explorers, not conquerors. But I believe that when we have the chance to prevent suffering, especially suffering on the scale you've described, we have a responsibility to try, even if it isn't required of us. A strange philosophy for a species with weapons capable of what your ship carries, Dolmek said, though there was no hostility in his tone, only genuine curiosity. Perhaps, Voss admitted, but having strength doesn't mean we should use it carelessly, or that we shouldn't use it to help when we can. My people learned that lesson slowly and painfully over many centuries of our own conflicts. Dolmek was quiet for a long moment. My father taught me that peace offered too easily is often peace offered by the weak, hiding a trap. But you do not strike me as weak, Captain Voss. Perhaps that is why I find myself willing to at least listen. That means a great deal to me, Warlord, Voss said sincerely. Finally, on the morning of the third day, sensors detected a new fleet approaching from the opposite direction. The Serenity Fleet's Speaker Mother had arrived. Her flagship was beautiful, unlike anything the crew had seen before, shaped almost like a flower with curved silver petals extending from a central body, all of it glowing softly, with the same blue-white light patterns seen on the smaller Aeltho ships. It was escorted by 50 warships, moving in a graceful, coordinated formation that looked almost like a dance. That's quite a different style of ship, Kim observed from her science station. Everything about their technology seems to focus on grace and precision, very different from the Vorik's focus on raw power and armor. Two very different cultures, Voss murmured. No wonder they've struggled to understand each other for 3 generations. The comm channel opened once more, and a gentle, musical voice came through, quite different from Dolmek's rough tone. Greetings, honored one. I am Thessaly Orin, Speaker Mother of the Aeltho people. I have traveled far to see this moment with my own eyes, and to hear what peace you believe possible between my people and the Vorik clans. Thank you for coming, Speaker Mother Orin, Voss replied. I am Captain Elena Voss. Warlord Dulmec has already arrived, and we are ready to begin real discussions whenever you are prepared. Then let us begin, Orin said. Though I must ask, honestly, and without offense intended, do you truly believe yourself capable of understanding a conflict that predates your own people's arrival in this region entirely? Forgive my doubt, but 3 generations of pain cannot be solved by a stranger's good intentions alone. Voss appreciated the honesty, even if it stung a little. You're right to doubt me, Speaker Mother. I don't have all the answers, but I do have something that might help. My science officers have gathered detailed information about the xanthium deposits on Urkesh, the resource at the heart of this war. I believe there may be more common ground between your 2 peoples than 3 generations of fighting have allowed either side to see clearly. Then show us, Orin said simply. Let both fleets gather here, in this space, and let us hear what you have discovered. Arrangements were made quickly. Both fleet leaders agreed to meet aboard the USS Earth itself, in a large conference room the crew had hastily prepared, choosing to trust the strange human ship enough to step onto it directly, rather than negotiate purely through comm channels. It was a significant gesture of trust, and Voss knew it was largely because of the lingering belief that she might be connected to their ancient legends. The day of the meeting arrived. Voss stood at the entrance to the ship's largest conference room, watching as small shuttles from both fleets docked carefully with the USS Earth. She had ordered extra security precautions, of course, careful scans for weapons, careful monitoring of every movement, but she had also ordered her security team to stay out of sight as much as possible, not wanting to make their guests feel threatened or disrespected. Warlord Grath Dulmec stepped off his shuttle first. In person, he was enormous, standing well over 2 meters tall, with thick gray skin like stone, and small horns curving back from his skull. His eyes were a deep amber color, sharp and calculating as he looked around the human ship's corridors. Your ship is impressive, he said gruffly to Voss, as she greeted him personally. Larger than I expected, even having seen it from outside. Thank you, Warlord, Voss said. This way, please. Speaker Mother Thessaly Orin arrived next, and her appearance was just as striking in its own way. She was tall and slender, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer slightly under the ship's lights, and large dark eyes that seemed almost too big for her narrow face. She moved with a graceful, careful precision, like someone who had spent a lifetime being watched and judged by others. Captain Voss, she said, her voice as gentle in person as it had been over the comm channel. Thank you for arranging this meeting. I confess, part of me still doubts the wisdom of trusting a stranger with something this important, but another part of me hopes desperately that you truly can help us find a way out of this endless war. I understand your doubts, Voss said honestly. I only ask that you give this a real chance before deciding it won't work. The 3 of them, along with their most trusted advisors, moved into the conference room, where Lieutenant Sarah Kim had prepared detailed holographic displays showing the xanthium deposits on Urkesh, along with projected calculations of how much of the resource actually existed, and how long it could realistically last if both fleets shared access to it, instead of fighting for exclusive control. As you can see, Kim explained, gesturing at the glowing hologram floating above the conference table, our scans indicate the total xanthium deposit beneath Urkesh's surface is far larger than either fleet has likely estimated. Based on your current mining and consumption rates, described to us by your representatives, there is enough xanthium here to supply both fleets for well over 300 years, even without discovering any additional deposits elsewhere in this system. Dulmec leaned forward, studying the numbers carefully. This is a much larger estimate than our own surveys ever suggested. Our surveys, Orin said slowly. As well, if this is accurate, then the resource itself was never truly the problem, was it? We fought over exclusive control of something that could have easily supplied us both. The problem, Voss said carefully, may never have been the xanthium itself, not really. From what I understand of your history, the conflict grew far beyond the original resource dispute. It became about pride, about revenge for lost loved ones, about generations of anger that made it impossible for either side to simply sit down and talk, the way we're doing right now. Dulmec's amber eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Voss worried she had overstepped. But then the warlord let out a long breath and nodded slowly. You are not wrong, Captain. My own father died in this war, killed by Alpha weapons when I was young. I have spent my entire adult life fighting partly to avenge him. It is difficult to simply set that aside, even faced with numbers that suggest the war was never truly necessary. I understand, Oren said quietly. My own sister was lost as well, many years ago, in a Vorik raid on one of our outer colonies. I have carried that grief with me every day since. The room fell silent for a long moment, heavy with shared pain that neither leader had expected to voice so openly in front of the other. Grief like that doesn't simply disappear, because we present you with better numbers, Voss said gently. I'm not asking either of you to forget your losses, or to forgive each other overnight. That would be unrealistic, and honestly, a little insulting to the real pain you've both experienced. What I'm asking is whether you're willing to consider a different path forward, one where future generations don't have to keep losing family members to a war that no longer has to continue. Dolmek and Oren looked at each other across the table, two leaders who had spent their entire lives as enemies, now facing each other, without the protection of their fleets and weapons between them. What exactly are you proposing, Captain Voss? Oren asked finally. Voss nodded to Kim, who brought up a new hologram, this one showing a detailed proposal her team had spent the last 2 days drafting. A shared mining agreement for the Urkesh deposits, divided fairly between both fleets based on population and need, with an independent monitoring system to ensure neither side takes more than their fair share. Alongside that, a formal ceasefire agreement, with clear terms for handling any future disputes through negotiation rather than warfare. And who would enforce such an agreement? Dolmek asked skeptically. Trust has been broken too many times in the past for either side to simply take the other's word. Voss had expected this question. That's something we would need to discuss further, but I believe a neutral third party could help monitor compliance, at least in the early stages, until trust between your two peoples can be rebuilt naturally over time. And would that neutral party be you? Oren asked, studying Voss carefully. The USS Earth, acting as guardian over our peace agreement? Voss considered the question carefully before answering. It was a huge responsibility to take on, one that could tie humanity to this alien conflict for years to come. But she also understood that without some form of trusted oversight, any peace agreement between these two fleets would likely collapse within months, just as previous ceasefires had. If both of you would accept it, yes, she said finally. My ship, and perhaps others from Earth in the future, could serve as neutral observers, helping ensure this agreement is honored fairly by both sides. Dolmek and Oren exchanged another long look, considering the proposal in silence for what felt like an eternity to everyone else in the room. Finally, Warlord Dolmek spoke. I will need to discuss this with my clan leaders before agreeing to anything permanent. But I am willing to consider it. For the first time in longer than I can remember, I am willing to consider that this war might actually end. Speaker Mother Oren nodded slowly. As am I. I will bring this proposal to my own council. It will take time, Captain Voss. But perhaps, for the first time in 3 generations, there is real hope for peace. Voss felt a wave of relief wash over her, though she knew this was only the beginning. Agreements like this could still fall apart in 100 different ways before they were ever fully realized. But for the first time since the USS Earth had stumbled into this alien war zone, she truly believed that peace might actually be possible. As the meeting stretched into the evening, the 3 leaders worked through additional details, discussing exact percentages of the Zenthium division, timelines for withdrawing military forces from contested border regions, and methods for handling disputes that might arise even after a formal treaty was signed. It was slow, careful work, the kind that required patience from everyone involved, but slowly, a real framework for peace began to take shape on the holographic display above the conference table. By the time the meeting finally ended for the night, both Dolmek and Oren seemed exhausted but strangely lighter, as though a weight they had carried for years had shifted slightly, even if it had not yet been fully lifted. We will return to our councils with this proposal, Oren said as she prepared to leave. I cannot promise they will accept it easily. 3 generations of pain do not vanish because of one meeting, however hopeful it may have felt. I understand, Voss said. Take whatever time you need. We'll remain in the system to support this process however we can. Dolmek paused at the door, looking back at Voss with an expression she couldn't quite read. Whatever you truly are, Captain Voss, Old One or simple explorer, You have given my people something we have not had in a very long time. A reason to hope this war might actually end. As both leaders departed for their respective shuttles, Voss remained in the conference room a while longer, reviewing the day's progress with quiet satisfaction. It had gone better than she had dared hope. But as the room emptied and the ship settled into its nighttime routines, none of them noticed a small, unmarked ship quietly observing the entire negotiation from a distance, its system specifically designed to avoid detection by either fleet's sensors, watching everything with cold, calculating interest. 3 weeks passed as both fleets took the peace proposal back to their leadership councils. During this time, the USS Earth remained in the system, acting as a steady, calm presence between the two fleets, who still kept a careful, respectful distance from each other, even as tensions slowly began to ease. Life aboard the USS Earth slowly returned to something close to normal during this waiting period, even as the historic negotiations continued in the background. Children still attended their classes in the ship's school. Farmers still tended the gardens that fed the crew. But everyone aboard knew something extraordinary was happening just outside the hull, and a quiet excitement hummed through the ship's corridors that had never existed before this mission began. Ensign Patel had been given a special assignment during this time, working directly with the ship's linguists to build a more complete translation dictionary for both the Vorik and Aeltho languages. It was slow, painstaking work, but she found herself enjoying it more than almost anything else she had done since joining the crew. Late one evening, working alongside Calith Van through a comm link established for exactly this purpose, she found herself laughing at a translation error that had turned a simple greeting into something quite embarrassing. "I promise, Calith, that phrase does not mean what our computer just told you it means," she said, still chuckling. "I did wonder," Calith replied, a hint of amusement clear even through the imperfect translation. "Your language has as many strange traps as ours does, it seems." These small human moments of connection, quiet jokes, shared curiosity, patient explanations, were building something Voss considered just as important as the formal negotiations themselves: genuine understanding between three very different peoples who had, until recently, known nothing about each other at all. Captain Voss used the time wisely, sending regular reports back to Earth through the long-range communication relay, informing Earth's government of the incredible first contact situation and the delicate peace negotiations currently underway. The response from Earth was a mixture of excitement and caution, with orders for Voss to continue the peace process carefully, but to prioritize the safety of her crew above all else. Meanwhile, aboard the ship, Lieutenant Chen had been quietly troubled by something for days. He kept returning to his sensor logs from the day of the first big meeting, studying strange readings that had appeared briefly before vanishing again. "Captain," he said one morning, catching Voss just before her daily briefing, "I need to show you something. I think we might have a problem." Voss followed him to the sensor station, where he pulled up archived data from 3 weeks earlier. "Look here," he said, pointing at a small, faint blip on the screen. "During the first major meeting, when both fleet leaders were aboard our ship, our long-range sensors picked up this signal, just for a few seconds, before it disappeared completely. It's not Vorik tech, and it's not Aeltho tech either. It's something else entirely." Voss studied the data carefully. Could it just be sensor interference, space debris, maybe a comet passing through? "That's what I thought at first," Chen admitted. "But I ran deeper analysis, and the way this signal moved doesn't match natural debris at all. It moved with purpose, like it was deliberately positioning itself to observe our meeting, and then it used some kind of advanced cloaking technology to hide itself again." A chill went through Voss. "Someone's been watching us. Watching the negotiations. That's my theory too, Captain," Chen said. "And if I'm right, whoever it is has technology more advanced than either the Vorik or the Aeltho fleets. Advanced enough to avoid detection almost entirely. We only caught this brief glimpse because of pure luck, a slight glitch in their cloaking field." Voss immediately called an emergency meeting with her senior officers. "We may have a third party involved in this situation," she told them once everyone had gathered. "Someone with advanced technology, deliberately hiding their presence, watching our peace negotiations closely." "Who would benefit from spying on peace talks?" Okafor asked. "Think about it," Kim said slowly, from her science station. 3 generations of war between the Vorik and Aeltho fleets. Someone has been supplying weapons, ships, Technology. To keep that war going this long. Wars like this don't just sustain themselves without outside support, especially not for 3 generations straight. Voss's eyes widened as she realized what Kim was suggesting. Arms dealers. Someone's been profiting from this war the entire time, and now that we're trying to end it, they stand to lose everything. It would explain the technology, Chen added. If they've been secretly supplying weapons and ship designs to both sides throughout the war, they might have access to far more advanced tech than what they've been sharing with either fleet. We need to warn both Dolmek and Oren, Voss said immediately. If there really is a third party trying to keep this war going for profit, they might try to sabotage the peace agreement before it can be finalized. But before Voss could send that warning, the situation escalated dramatically. Alarms blared throughout the ship. "Captain," Chen shouted from his station. "Multiple weapon signatures detected. Unknown origin. They're targeting Speaker Mother Oren's flagship directly." Voss rushed back to the bridge, her heart pounding. On the main screen, she watched in horror as bright energy weapons fire streaked out of seemingly empty space, striking the beautiful flower-shaped Ieltho flagship directly. Explosions bloomed along its silver hull as the ship's shields struggled to hold against the sudden, unexpected assault. "Where is that fire coming from?" Voss demanded. "I can't get a clear reading," Chen said, frantically working his console. "Whatever's attacking, it's still cloaked. I'm only picking up the weapons fire itself, not the source." "They're trying to make it look like the Vorik broke the ceasefire," Okafor realized suddenly. "If Oren's flagship is destroyed, and everyone believes the Vorik did it, the peace talks collapse instantly, and the war starts up again immediately. We can't let that happen," Voss said firmly. "Helm, move us between the attacking fire and Oren's flagship. Raise our own shields to maximum, and use our sensors to try to pinpoint that hidden attacker." The USS Earth moved with surprising speed for such a massive vessel, positioning itself as a shield between the invisible attacker and the Ieltho flagship. Weapons fire slammed into the USS Earth's powerful shields, which held strong against the assault, absorbing blow after blow without significant damage. "Captain, the Vorik fleet is moving," Chen reported urgently. "Warlord Dolmek's ships are repositioning, and some of them are starting to power up their weapons." "They think this is an ambush," Voss realized with dread. "They believe we're helping the Ieltho attack them, or that this is some kind of trick. Get me a direct channel to Dolmek immediately," she ordered. The channel opened, and Dolmek's angry voice came through instantly. "Captain Voss, explain yourself. Why is your ship shielding the Ieltho flagship while unknown weapons fire strikes at us from hidden positions?" "Warlord Dolmek, listen to me carefully," Voss said urgently. "This is not an Ieltho attack, and it's not us either. Someone else, a third party with advanced cloaking technology, is attacking Oren's ship, trying to make it look like your people broke the ceasefire. They want this war to continue." Dolmek snapped back. "Because if your fleet opens fire right now, based on false information, you'll be doing exactly what this hidden enemy wants," Voss said firmly. 3 generations of war, and someone has been profiting from it the entire time. Someone doesn't want your peoples to find peace, and they're willing to trick you both into destroying each other again to keep that profit flowing." There was a tense pause. Then Dolmek's voice came through again, quieter but still wary. "Prove it. Show me evidence of this hidden attacker, and I will hold my fleet's fire. But if I see even a single Ieltho weapon discharge aimed at my ships, all bets are off, Captain." Voss turned urgently to Chen. "Lieutenant, I need something. Anything that can prove there's a third ship out there right now." Chen worked frantically at his console, adjusting sensor frequencies, trying different scanning methods. "Captain, I might be able to use our deflector array to send out a focused sensor pulse. It won't give us a perfect picture, but it might disrupt their cloaking field, just long enough to get a visual confirmation." "Do it, now." Chen's hands flew across his controls, and moments later, the USS Earth's deflector array pulsed with a burst of focused energy, spreading outward in the direction the mysterious weapons fire seemed to be originating from. For a brief moment, space itself seemed to shimmer strangely, and then, for just a few seconds, a ship became visible. It was sleek, black, entirely unlike anything from either the Vorik or Ieltho fleets, bristling with weapon ports, clearly built for stealth attacks rather than open combat. Got it, Chen shouted. Captain, I have a clear visual and sensor lock, just for a moment before it recloaked. But I have proof now. Send that data to both Dolmec and Orange ships immediately, Voss ordered. Full sensor readings, visual confirmation, everything. The data was transmitted instantly, and moments later, both fleet leaders responded, their voices now filled with shock rather than anger. By the ancestors, Dolmec muttered. This is real. There truly is a hidden enemy. I see it too, Oren's voice came through, shaken but grateful. Captain Voss, thank you. If you had not intervened, my people would likely be at war with the Vorik again, within the hour, believing they had attacked us without warning. We're not done yet, Voss said grimly. That ship is still out there, and if they're desperate enough to attack an entire fleet flagship directly, they might try something even more drastic, if their plan continues to fail. As if in response to her words, new alarms blared through the bridge. Captain! I'm detecting multiple additional cloaked signatures now. At least 6 more ships, matching the same energy profile as the one we identified, Chen reported urgently. They're moving into attack position, and this time, they're targeting us directly. Voss's blood ran cold. All hands, red alert. Raise shields to maximum power. All weapon systems online. Prepare for direct combat. The bridge crew scrambled into action, the calm negotiations of the past few weeks replaced instantly by the tense readiness of imminent battle. Voss gripped the arms of her command chair, watching the tactical display as 6 previously hidden enemy warships began decloaking around the USS Earth, weapons charging, clearly prepared to destroy the massive human vessel before it could reveal any more of their secret operation. Captain, both the Vorik and Aeltho fleets are moving too, Okafor reported. It looks like they're moving to support us. On the main screen, Voss watched as dozens of ships from both the Vorik and Aeltho fleets began converging toward the USS Earth's position, weapons raised not against each other, but against the newly revealed hidden attackers who had been secretly prolonging their war for 3 generations. They're actually working together, Patel said in amazement from her station. For the first time in 3 generations, the Vorik and Aeltho fleets are fighting on the same side. Voss allowed herself a small, grim smile despite the danger of the moment. Sometimes it takes a common enemy to remind people how much they actually have in common with each other. Captain, the hidden ships are opening fire, Chen shouted. All weapons, return fire. Target their engines and weapon systems. Try to disable rather than destroy if possible. We may need information from survivors, Voss ordered. The USS Earth's powerful weapon systems fired for the first time since this entire encounter began. Precise and controlled, targeting the revealed enemy ships with practiced efficiency. At the same time, Vorik and Aeltho warships converged from both sides, working together with surprising coordination, despite generations of mutual distrust, catching the hidden attackers in a crossfire they clearly had not anticipated. The battle was intense but brief. Outnumbered and outmaneuvered, with their element of surprise completely lost, the mysterious attacking ships fought desperately for several minutes. The USS Earth's shields flared bright with each impact, holding steady thanks to the ship's advanced defensive systems, while its precise return fire disabled one enemy vessel's engines completely. On the tactical display, Voss watched as Vorik warships, moving with the aggressive, direct style she had come to expect from Dolmec's fleet, pressed hard against 2 of the enemy ships from one side, while the more graceful, coordinated Aeltho vessels executed careful flanking maneuvers from the other, catching a 3rd enemy ship in a crossfire it had no way to escape. Captain, one of the disabled enemy ships is trying to self-destruct, Chen shouted suddenly. I'm reading a massive power surge in their core systems. Can we stop it? Voss demanded. Transmitting an emergency override signal now, based on their own system's architecture, Kim said quickly, working alongside Chen. It's a long shot, but if it works, we might be able to force an emergency shutdown before they can trigger a full detonation. Tense seconds passed as the power surge continued to build. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the enemy ship's systems went dark, its self-destruct sequence interrupted at the last possible moment. It worked, Kim said, relief evident in her voice. Their ship is disabled but intact. We should be able to bring the crew in for questioning. 3 of the mysterious attacking ships were destroyed outright in the fighting, 2 more disabled and captured, and the last one attempting a desperate escape, fleeing at maximum speed away from the combined human, Vorik, and Aeltho forces. "Should we pursue?" Okafor asked. Voss considered it for a moment, then shook her head. "Let it go. We have 2 captured ships now, and hopefully some answers about who exactly has been fueling this war for 3 generations. That's more valuable right now than chasing down one more ship." As the brief but intense battle ended, an unusual quiet settled over the system. Ships from 3 very different fleets, human, Vorik, and Aeltho, floated together in space, having just fought side by side for the first time in history. Warlord Dolmek's voice came through the comm channel again, sounding oddly subdued. "Captain Voss, it seems we owe you a debt greater than I realized. Not only did you help expose the true enemy behind our endless war, but your ship placed itself between us and danger without hesitation, protecting the very people you were trying to help find peace with." "We're not finished yet," Voss reminded him gently. "We still need to interrogate the captured crews, figure out exactly who they represent, and use that information to make sure something like this can never happen again. But yes, I think today proved something important. When it truly mattered, your people and the Aeltho were willing to stand together against a common threat, rather than turning against each other out of old suspicion." Speaker Mother Oren's gentle voice joined the conversation. "Perhaps, Captain Voss, this terrible attack has actually given us something valuable, proof that peace between our peoples is not just possible, but that we can trust each other enough to fight side by side when it truly matters." Voss nodded slowly, looking out at the combined fleets floating peacefully together in space for the first time in generations. "Then let's make sure this moment isn't wasted. Let's find out who's really been behind this war, and let's finish building a peace strong enough that no hidden enemy can ever tear it apart again." In the aftermath of the battle, medical teams from all 3 fleets worked together aboard the USS Earth, tending to the wounded regardless of which side they had originally fought for. It was a small thing, perhaps, but Voss noticed it immediately. A Vorik medic carefully bandaging the wound of an injured Aeltho soldier, working side by side with a human nurse, none of them paying any attention to the old lines that had divided their peoples for 3 generations. "Look at that," Kim said quietly, standing beside Voss as they watched the scene from the corridor outside the medical bay. "A week ago, those 2 would have been trying to kill each other. A week ago, they didn't know what they were truly fighting for, or who was truly benefiting from their fight," Voss replied. "Sometimes the truth changes everything, once people are finally able to see it clearly." Later, Voss visited the 2 captured enemy ships personally, wanting to see with her own eyes the vessels that had so nearly destroyed the fragile peace they had all worked so hard to build. The ships were sleek and efficient, built purely for stealth and sudden violence, nothing like the more balanced designs of either the Vorik or Aeltho fleets. Everything about their construction suggested an organization that valued secrecy and profit above all else, with no true home, no true people to answer to beyond their own hidden leadership. "We'll need a full team to go through their systems," Chen said, joining her at the airlock connecting to the captured vessel. "If we can access their records, we might learn exactly how far this conspiracy really reaches." "Do it carefully," Voss said, "and keep Dolmek and Oren informed of everything we find. This isn't just our discovery to make. It belongs to all 3 of us now." As the crew began the difficult work of interrogating captured prisoners and analyzing the wreckage of destroyed enemy ships, none of them yet realized just how deep the true conspiracy behind the war truly went, or how much more dangerous the final confrontation still waiting for them would become. The captured enemy ships were brought aboard the USS Earth for questioning, their crews taken into custody by a joint security team made up of human, Vorik, and Aeltho officers, working together for the first time in history. It was a strange sight, 3 very different species standing guard side by side, but after the battle they had just fought together, no one questioned the arrangement. Captain Voss, along with Warlord Dolmek and Speaker Mother Oren, gathered in the ship's interrogation room to question the captured crew members personally. The prisoners, once their translators were connected, turned out to be a species none of them had ever encountered before, small and quick-moving, with sharp gray eyes and skin like dried leather. "Who are you, and who do you work for?" Voss asked the first prisoner, a nervous-looking individual who kept glancing between the 3 very different leaders questioning him. At first, the prisoner refused to speak, clearly frightened of what might happen to him. But after some careful, patient persuasion from Speaker Mother Oren, who spoke gently and promised fair treatment regardless of what information he provided, he finally began to talk. "We are called the Threshold Collective," he said, his translated voice trembling slightly. "We are merchants. Weapons merchants mostly. We have been supplying both the Vorik and Aeltho fleets with weapons, ship parts, and various technologies for many years now." "For how many years?" Dolmek demanded, his voice hard. Since near the beginning of your war, warlord," the prisoner admitted. "Perhaps even before it fully began. We recognized early that a conflict between your two peoples, if it grew large enough and lasted long enough, would create an enormous, permanent market for our weapons and technology. We have profited greatly from supplying both sides throughout this entire war." Oren's gentle face had gone pale with quiet fury. "You mean to tell me that our war, the deaths of my sister and countless others, was not merely something you profited from, but something you deliberately encouraged to continue?" The prisoner flinched at her tone, but nodded slowly. "We did more than simply supply weapons, Speaker Mother. Over the years, we occasionally arranged small incidents. A raid here, a broken ceasefire there, always designed to look like it came from the other side, always designed to reignite the fighting whenever it seemed like your peoples might actually find peace." The room went deathly silent. Voss watched as both Dolmek and Oren processed this horrifying revelation, that their war, the deaths of their loved ones, the loss of millions of lives across 3 entire generations, had not simply been a tragic accident of history, but had been deliberately fueled and extended by outside manipulators seeking profit. "Tell me more about this Threshold Collective," Voss said, keeping her voice steady and calm, despite the anger she could feel building in the room. "Who leads it? Where are they based?" "I do not know the full structure, Captain," the prisoner admitted. "We operate in small, separate cells, deliberately kept ignorant of each other's identities and locations, so that if one cell is captured, as we have been, the rest of the organization remains protected. I can tell you only that our leadership operates from somewhere far from this region, coordinating similar operations across many different conflicts throughout this part of the galaxy." "Many different conflicts," Oren repeated slowly, horror creeping into her voice. "You mean to say ours is not the only war you have deliberately prolonged for profit?" "No, Speaker Mother," the prisoner said quietly. "There are others. Several others, in fact, spread across different star systems, different species, all kept fighting far longer than they naturally would have, all for the same purpose. Profit from weapons sales, profit from salvage rights, profit from the desperation of war-torn populations willing to pay any price for protection or advantage." "How many times," Dolmek asked, his voice dangerously quiet, "did you sabotage a genuine chance for peace between our peoples?" The prisoner hesitated, clearly afraid to answer, but finally spoke. "At least 7 times over the generations, Warlord. 7 separate occasions when both sides seemed close to a lasting peace agreement, and we intervened to ensure the fighting continued instead." Voss felt sick hearing this confirmation. 7 times, real chances for peace had existed, and 7 times, they had been deliberately destroyed for profit by outside forces neither the Vorik nor Altho people had even known existed. "Why reveal all this now?" Voss asked the prisoner directly. "Why not simply refuse to talk?" The prisoner looked at her with something like genuine fear. "Because, Captain Voss, we know what you truly are, or at least, what the old stories say you are. We feared that if we lied to an old one, the consequences would be far worse than simply facing justice from the Vorik and Aeltho peoples." Voss almost laughed at the irony that this ancient, mistaken legend about her ship had actually helped uncover the truth, even though she still had no idea if there was any real connection between the USS Earth and whatever ancient civilization these old stories were originally based on. "We are not gods, or judges, or ancient legends," she said firmly, wanting to be completely clear. "We are simply explorers who happen to arrive at the wrong, or perhaps the right, moment. But we will make sure the truth of what you've done here is known clearly, and that you face fair justice for the suffering you've caused." Over the following days, more information was extracted from the captured prisoners, revealing an extensive network of Threshold collective operations that had profited from wars across multiple star systems, not just the conflict between the Vorik and Aeltho. It was a sobering, disturbing discovery, proof that some in the galaxy were willing to manipulate entire civilizations into endless warfare, purely for financial gain. With this evidence in hand, Warlord Dulmec and Speaker Mother Orin returned to their respective councils with something far more powerful than Voss's original peace proposal alone. Now they had undeniable proof that their entire three-generation war had been artificially prolonged and manipulated by outside forces, information that made accepting a genuine peace agreement far easier for both sides to justify to their own people. 2 more weeks passed as both governments deliberated, studying the evidence, discussing the terms of the peace agreement Voss had helped draft, and slowly, cautiously, beginning to trust that this peace might actually be different from the failed ceasefires of the past. Finally, the day came when both Dulmec and Orin contacted Voss with identical news. Their councils had approved the peace agreement. A formal ceremony was arranged aboard the USS Earth, a fitting location given its role in bringing this long, painful war to an end. Representatives from both fleets gathered in the ship's largest hall, normally used for crew gatherings and celebrations, now transformed for this historic occasion. Human crew members stood alongside Vorik soldiers and Aeltho diplomats, all watching quietly as the moment approached that would end 3 generations of bloodshed. Voss stood between Warlord Dulmec and Speaker Mother Orin as they signed the formal peace treaty, establishing shared access to the Zenthium deposits on Urkesh, creating clear systems for resolving future disputes without violence, and formally ending 3 generations of warfare between the Vorik clans and the Aeltho people. As the final signatures were completed, a quiet, respectful silence fell over the hall, broken only by Speaker Mother Orin's soft voice as she spoke to the gathered crowd. "Let it be remembered," she said, "that on this day, our peoples chose a different path, not because we were forced to, but because we finally understood that we had a choice all along." Warlord Dulmec added his own words, gruff but sincere. "Let it also be remembered that this peace was not given to us. It was earned, through hard truths faced honestly, and through the courage of a crew from a distant world who chose to help strangers instead of turning away." A quiet murmur of agreement rippled through the gathered crowd, Vorik, Aeltho, and human alike, and for the first time in 3 generations, representatives of 2 ancient enemy peoples stood together, not in battle, but in genuine, hard-won peace. 3 generations, Orin said quietly, looking at the signed treaty with an expression of mixed relief and lingering sadness. "My grandmother's generation began this war. My generation may finally be the one to end it." "It will not erase the pain of what has been lost," Dulmec added, his rough voice softer than Voss had ever heard it. "But perhaps it means future generations of our peoples will not have to carry that same burden of loss and revenge that we have carried our entire lives. That's really all any of us can hope for," Voss said gently. "Not to erase the past, but to build something better for the future." As part of the peace agreement, both the Vorik and Aeltho governments requested that Earth establish a permanent diplomatic presence in the region, eager to learn more about human technology, human culture, and perhaps eventually, formal trade and cooperation agreements between all 3 species. Voss agreed to relay this request back to Earth's government, confident that this could be the beginning of a valuable alliance for humanity, one built not on conquest or manipulation, but on the genuine trust earned through helping end a devastating war. Before the USS Earth finally departed the system to continue its original exploration mission, Speaker Mother Orin requested one final private conversation with Captain Voss. "I must ask you something, Captain," Orin said, once they were alone in the ship's small observation lounge, looking out at the peaceful stars beyond the viewport. "Do you truly believe your people are connected to the old legends of the old ones, or was it simply a fortunate coincidence that led us to trust you in that critical moment?" Voss considered the question carefully, before answering honestly. "I don't know, Speaker Mother. Perhaps there really was an ancient civilization that once traveled through this region, and perhaps by pure chance, human ship design ended up resembling their old legends. Or perhaps the connection is something else entirely, something neither of us fully understands yet. But I do know this, whether or not we're truly connected to your old legends, I'm grateful that belief gave us the chance to help end your war, and to build something better between our peoples going forward." Orin nodded slowly, a small, genuine smile crossing her pale blue face. Perhaps that is enough, Captain Voss. Perhaps it does not matter whether the old legends are entirely true, only that they led us toward a better path than the one we were on before. As the USS Earth finally prepared to leave the system, continuing its original mission of exploring unknown space, Voss stood on the bridge one last time, watching the combined Vorik and Aeltho fleets on the main screen, now floating peacefully together, rather than locked in endless battle. "Captain," Okafor said quietly, standing beside her, "we came into this system expecting a simple survey mission. Instead, we ended a war that had lasted 3 generations, uncovered a massive conspiracy of manipulation and profit, and made first contact with not one, but 2 entirely new alien species." "Not a bad few weeks' work," Voss said, with a tired but genuine smile. "What do you think Earth will say when they hear the full report?" Patel asked from her station, unable to hide her curiosity. Voss thought about it for a long moment before answering. "I think Earth will realize something important, that sometimes the greatest legends aren't the ones written in ancient stories, but the ones we choose to create ourselves, through the choices we make when it matters most." As the USS Earth's powerful engines engaged, carrying the great ship away from the system that would forever remember it as the moment 2 ancient enemies became allies, Voss allowed herself one final look back at the peaceful fleets floating together in the vast darkness of space. Behind them, the Vorik and Aeltho peoples were already beginning the long, difficult work of building a lasting peace, guided by an agreement forged not through the mythical power of ancient legends, but through the simple, powerful choice of ordinary people, human, Vorik, and Aeltho alike, deciding together that peace was worth choosing, even after 3 generations of war had told them it was impossible. And somewhere far ahead in the darkness of unexplored space, new mysteries and new civilizations waited for the USS Earth to discover them, carrying with it now, not just the curiosity of human explorers, but the growing reputation of a ship that had proven, in its very first true test, that humanity's greatest strength was not its weapons or its technology, but its willingness to help others find peace, even when that peace seemed impossible to achieve. In the days before departure, small groups of Vorik and Aeltho representatives had toured parts of the USS Earth, curious about human culture, and eager to begin building the kind of understanding that might prevent future misunderstandings between their peoples. Marcus Webb, the engineer whose daughter Lily attended school aboard the ship, found himself giving an impromptu tour of the engine room to a group of fascinated Vorik engineers, none of them sharing a common language beyond the ship's translators, yet somehow managing to bond over their shared passion for machinery and craftsmanship. In the ship's central garden, Lily herself, along with several other human children, had spent an afternoon showing a small delegation of young Aeltho visitors how Earth plants grew, under artificial sunlight, the children laughing together over language barriers and cultural differences that seemed to matter far less to them than they did to the adults around them. Voss watched these small moments unfold over the following days with quiet satisfaction, understanding that peace between 2 ancient enemies would not be built solely through formal treaties and careful negotiations, but through thousands of small, ordinary connections like these, made one at a time, one person at a time, until old enemies slowly became something closer to distant neighbors, and perhaps, in time, true friends. On the final morning before departure, Speaker Mother Oren and Warlord Dolmek both came aboard one last time, standing together with Voss on the observation deck as the crew made final preparations for the jump back into deep space. "We will not forget what you have done here, Captain Voss," Oren said softly. "Whatever the truth of the old legends, you have earned a place in the true history of our peoples now, one far more meaningful than any myth. Should you ever need anything from the Vorik clans," Dolmek added, extending a large gray hand toward her in an unmistakable gesture of respect, "you need only ask." Voss shook his hand firmly, then embraced Oren briefly, in the gentle way she had learned was customary among the Aeltho. "Take care of the peace you've built," she told them both. "It's yours now, not mine. Protect it well." As the USS Earth's powerful engines engaged, carrying the great ship away from the system that would forever remember it as the moment 2 ancient enemies became allies, Voss allowed herself one final look back at the peaceful fleets floating together in the vast darkness of space, growing smaller and smaller, until they disappeared entirely from view. The USS Earth sailed on into the unknown, its crew forever changed by what they had witnessed and accomplished, carrying with them the quiet hope that wherever their journey took them next, they would continue to live up to the better parts of the legend that had, by pure chance, given them their first great chance to make a real difference among the stars.